Derrick Rose has retired from basketball, and the NBA will never be the same. It feels like it was yesterday when D-Rose came into the league and left everyone in shock with his athleticism. Point guards were not supposed to do what he did, dunking over people and catching alley-oops. At the time, everyone thought he'd be the counterforce to LeBron's Heat in the East, but unfortunately, we didn't get to see Derrick enter his prime. That's crazy to say about the guy who's won an NBA MVP award. If he managed to win it without entering his prime, what could have been if he did? Hello basketball fans, and welcome to Hoop Vision. Today, we're going through the story of Rose that never blossomed and how different NBA history would have been if the ACL injury never happened. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Takes only a second, costs nothing, and will give you access to more basketball stories. Even in high school, it was obvious D-Rose would reach the NBA. It was just a matter of time. He played for the Simeon Wolverines, wearing number 25 to honor their former player Ben Wilson, who got murdered by a gang shootout in 1984. Sadly, the city of Chicago is notorious for this type of stuff to this day. Before D-Rose, Coach Bob Hambrick had a rule about not allowing freshmen into the varsity team. Guess who made him change his mind? You've guessed it right. During the Rose era, Simeon became the first Chicago public league school to win 2 consecutive state championships, achieving a 120-12 record. In his last year, Derrick averaged an insane 25 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, and 3 steals per game, which made him one of the most desirable college prospects. The universities of Indiana and Illinois were chasing him the most, but D-Rose chose Memphis for multiple reasons. First, Coach John Calipari was the one fitting the most to his playing style. Second, he liked the idea of being mentored by Rod Strickland. And third, the fact Memphis University had the best history of launching players into the league. However, it's not like it mattered. Rose had a great rookie season and declared for the 2008 NBA draft. Another top prospect that year was Michael Beasley, who ended up being drafted second by the Heat. The Bulls ended up winning the draft lottery, and Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner of the franchise, interviewed players trying to decide who to pick. He asked them both the same question: what about college basketball bothered you the most? Beasley's response was, when you go on the road and the refs make bad calls. D-Rose just said, losing. According to the story, that was the main reason why they went with him over Beasley, who was putting up crazy numbers as well. D-Rose was way more mature than expected for his age, and the Bulls were ready to build around him. We all know what happened next. One of the best rookie seasons ever. Averaging 16 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds was more than enough to give him an almost unanimous victory over other candidates. And not just that, but reaching the playoffs in your very first year is something not many players were able to do in their careers. It's easy to do that being a rookie on a solid team, but leading the franchise starting in 80 games in your first season is crazy. They'd lose to the Celtics in the first round, but took them to Game 7, which is an achievement in itself considering Boston was one of the best teams in the league at that moment. Year 2, D-Rose earned his first All-Star appearance. Before year 3, the famous question and even more famous response came about.
It's high. The way I look at it within myself, why not? Why can't I be the MVP of the league?
And MVP he was. That year, D-Rose played like someone took breaks away from him. The Bulls ended the regular season with the best record in the league, 62-20. It was their first 60-plus win season since 1998, and only 6th in the franchise's history. The team had an unbelievable chemistry, and everything hinted towards a serious postseason run. Some people went as far as to criticize the fact the MVP went to D-Rose, but when you take a look beyond just stats, you see why it's nonsense. First, Rose averaged 25 points, 7.7 assists, and 4 rebounds per game, which was awesome for a guy in his 3rd year. Then, he was the main offensive weapon on the best team in the league. But not just that, he was the reason the team was best in the league. If you took him off that roster, there is no way they'd get the number 1 seed. Who knows if they'd even reach the playoffs? His main rivals in MVP voting were Dwight Howard and LeBron James. This is how they compared against each other. The biggest controversy was around D-Rose being undeserving of the MVP award. LeBron was coming back from back-to-back MVPs, and there's no way the league was going to give him his 3rd after forming the Big Three with Wade and Bosh. In the media's eyes, he was the biggest basketball villain ever, so no MVP for him that year. To be honest, Miami was OP with that roster, so that's more than fair. Dwight earned his 3rd Defensive Player of the Year award, but ended up losing to Atlanta in the very first round, and was one of the main reasons for bad locker room atmosphere, so there goes his argument out of the window. Year 2011 was when D Rose was a force to be reckoned with, and no one can dispute he didn't earn becoming the youngest NBA MVP ever, being only 22 years and 6 months old. That same season, he became only the third player since the 1972 and 73 season to reach at least 2,000 points and 600 assists in a single year. The only two before him were Jordan and LeBron, which only adds weight to his MVP. The playoffs were just as crazy as the regular season. Being the number 1 seed, the Bulls faced number 8 Indiana, led by Danny Granger, Roy Hibbert, and a rookie Paul George. Game 1 was one of the most exciting playoffs moments ever, when Chicago came back after trailing for more than 46 minutes. Just take a look at the madness at the United Center. When you make Larry Bird look concerned like that, you know you're one hell of a basketball player. Larry's face said it all. I can't be mad at my guys. There's nothing much you can do against this guy. Unfortunately, this wasn't the case for LeBron and the Heat. They just had too much talent and were able to neutralize the D Rose effect in the Eastern Conference Finals. Still, it was nice to be back there since MJ and his era. Considering the Bulls currently can't reach the playoffs, let alone the conference finals, 2011 was the year they'd gladly experience one more time. When the dust settled and the Mavs got to celebrate their first championship ever, everyone was talking about LeBron's legacy and what that loss would mean for his career. The NBA media focus was mainly on the Heat, meaning D Rose and the Bulls had a chance of working their way back to title contention. The season was shorter due to the Players Union lockdown, so with a 50-16 record, the Bulls were the best team once again, facing the 8-seeded Philly. Everyone thought that would be a walk in the park for Chicago, but it turned into their biggest nightmare. D Rose injured his ACL less than 2 minutes before the end, and the Bulls ended up getting eliminated 4-1 by the 76ers. That moment was the beginning of one of the saddest stories in the NBA ever. D Rose could never return to his prior form. After making a comeback the next year, he played only 10 games before hurting the other knee. There have been stories and articles about the Bulls forcing him to play before he was 100% ready, which ultimately led to his second injury. Some went so far to call it one of the worst handled injuries in the history of the league. After that, it was all a downhill journey. The Bulls couldn't pose any real danger in the postseason anymore, and in 2016, they made the trade with the New York Knicks.
I don't know why I was traded, but I would like to tell him thank you.
Despite bouncing around the league after that, D Rose has something to be very proud of that not many players can say about themselves, especially after so much time had passed after their best years. He's still one of the most beloved players in the entire NBA. His career will forever be one of the biggest what-ifs in the history of basketball, but it's not like his case was a unique one. Many other talents were hurt too early into their careers to showcase their full potential. Grant Hill was supposed to be the next Michael Jordan, but his ankles had other plans. T-Mac was also one of the biggest talents and was supposed to be Kobe Bryant's hardest rivals, but you can't form a rivalry if you're not on the court. Brandon Roy deserves a mention here, as he was a beast for the Blazers, but the man had knees of a 1,000-year-old mummy. And lastly, you cannot say the word injury without Greg Oden coming to mind. The man played a total of 105 games over 7 seasons in the NBA. Portland probably regretted picking him first in 2007 1,000 times over, since he was practically useless on the court with injuries that bad. Still, it's good to know Oden kept a good spirit, despite never being able to fulfill his career potential.
You play basketball?
I used to.
Oh, you do, so I can beat you.
That's it for today, Hoop Fam. We hope you've enjoyed this video. Let us know in the comments, what do you think of D Rose and who had the worst career-ending injury out of all the players? Thank you for watching and growing this channel. Make sure you don't miss out on more NBA stories by hitting that subscribe button. See you in the next one.